Cordell,
Louise Blain,
Jon Brady,
Lydia Ellery,
Dave Cook, Holly Nielsen,
Alex Donaldson,
Debbie Timmins, Alan Williamson,
Tom Bramwell. What is your favourite game?
My favourite game.
My favourite game.
My favourite game.
My favourite game.
my favourite game,
My favourite game.
My favourite game.
My favourite game.
My favourite game.
My favourite game is...
When I think of game developers who mean a lot to so many people, like when I think of, for me anyways, it's Kojima.
I knew you were going to say him.
Would I be right in saying the same thing about you and Ito?
Yeah, I mean, I think he has been lately especially getting blown a bit out of proportion because he's been silent since Final Fantasy XII. There was one game, Guardian Cross, where he was credited with the overall idea. And in 2012, there was some interview or something surfaced with him where he said he would work on another Final Fantasy game if the company's president asked him to. And there's been other little tidbits we've heard about him. Tetsuya Nomura said he regards Ito as one of only 4 people that that is superior to him within the development area of Square.
His senior, basically.
Yeah, he's senior. And when I spoke to last year, I spoke to the head of the Final Fantasy brand, Shinji Hashimoto, and I asked him specifically what Ito was up to. And he was very coy, and he kind of laughed, and he said, you're very interesting asking specifically about that one guy. And I said, why? I said, because I think he's the best guy you've got. I think, Kojima is a good comparison. I think Ito... It's weird because Final Fantasy IX is the opposite, where the battle system is probably the weakest part of the game. But on the whole, Ito is probably the best systems person in the world of Japanese RPGs. And I genuinely believe that. And, so the comparison to Kojima or Sakurai for Smash Brothers or whoever is I think, very, very apt. But, flip side, as I was saying, in recent years, because people have been unhappy with Final Fantasy and because Ito has been very, very quiet, his name has started to come up more and more because, 1, people want to know what he's doing, and 2, people feel like him coming back in could fix everything. And if we're talking about the future of the Final Fantasy series, I don't think that's necessarily true. He's a wonderful developer, he's incredibly smart, but I think all of his greatest successes have been him as a systems designer, as a gameplay-focused person, or a technology-focused person, working with somebody else that is very, very, very talented. On Final Fantasy XII, he was working, and Tactics, he was working with Matsuno, and Final Fantasy IX was really the last Final Fantasy title that Sakaguchi had direct, heavy involvement in, and he's actually credited. Sakaguchi is credited as the writer on that game, which he wasn't on 7 or 8. He was credited with ideas, but yeah. So Ito's somebody who I think is a visionary, and I think is absolutely incredible. But he's somebody that I think performs best when he's paired with the right people. And I hope that if he is working on Final Fantasy 16, as I believe he is, I hope he's working with some talented people who help to balance out the bits that he doesn't always get right.
Yeah, I was just seeing a tweet from you the other day about how he really needs someone who beside him who's more in check with the story side of things.
Yeah, and because I think that's borne out in 12. Where if you look at Final Fantasy 12, I think you can see and you can feel in that game the stuff that was done story wise after Matsuno was gone. Matsuno continued to supervise whatever that means, but who knows how much that actually meant, because it seems like he left that game in not the best of circumstances. There were certain things Square expected of a mainline Final Fantasy game, such as having a young, pretty male lead character that Matsuno didn't want. And when those things were being essentially forced upon the game, it seems like he maybe had a bit of a strop. But the point is, the stuff after Matsuno left, the story does kind of It doesn't get worse, but the execution isn't there, I think, on aspects of the story in 12 in that respect. So I do think he needs to be, because he was also the co-director of Final Fantasy VI. And the interesting thing is, on that game, he was the co-director alongside a guy who hasn't disappeared off the face of the earth, which is Yoshinori Kitase, who is the guy who obviously produced and directed Final Fantasy X and produced Final Fantasy 13. And he is a guy who actually, before he got into games, wanted to make movies. So those two balance each other out very well in that respect. Because Ito is the kind of guy who, who when he does other things, he's constantly thinking about game systems. Famously the active time battle system, which is, where the ready bars increase at differing rates for each character in the party and the enemy, was actually directly inspired by he was sitting there watching F1 and he was thinking about how the cars go past each other and all that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of designer he is. That is something that I don't think Kitase-san or even like Sakaguchi would think of.
If I said, like, would you like to see, that kind of Final Fantasy VI duo of, Kitase and Ito for 16, if that ever, came up as a possibility? Or do you think Final Fantasy 13 has kind of made Kitase's standing a bit shaky?
Let me explain two things. One, I don't think Final Fantasy 13 is a bad game. I gave it a 7 in my review back then, and I stand by that score. And I don't score on 7 to fucking 10. I score on 1 to 10. So 7 is good. And it's a flawed game, but it has a really interesting battle system, all that kind of stuff. And I think there's unfortunate things. Did the game need 2 sequels? No. But the problem, the reality of it was the game was hugely expensive. The Crystal Tools engine, which it isn't even really an engine, it's just really a set of software that's quite disparate, was a disaster. And Final Fantasy 13 and its sequels were all about mitigating that disaster. So, the sequels were made quite cheaply and were made to recoup some of the cost and made also to fill the gap, because obviously at the what was at the time Versus and then became 15 was also in the shit. But I don't think Kitase is a bad director. I think you also have to remember Kitase was only the producer on those games.
Yeah, Toriyama was the director.
Yeah, and Toriyama is an interesting soul. I mean, for instance, one of the interesting things about Final Fantasy VII is you can dive into the code and look at individual scenes, and all the scenario people have signed them, so you can see who did what scenes. And if you look at Final Fantasy VII, you can see that Toriyama was responsible for some of the weirder stuff in that game. And quite famously, one of the areas that he was responsible for was actually pretty much cut from the game wholesale because it was too weird and too dirty. This is the brothel. There were a number of scenes that were cut in the brothel involving President Shinra being caught with a prostitute and all this kind of weird stuff. And all that was cut from the game. It's still on the disc. You can still kind of learn about it. And there's a fantastic website which does that. I recommend it, thelivestream.net. But that was all Toriyama. And Final Fantasy X-2 with its weird, girl trip and we're going to go and bathe in hot springs. That was about the time I stopped playing that game, the hot springs scene. That was also all Toriyama. So, and I don't think Toriyama's a bad director. I just think when he's given absolute control himself, I think maybe his ideas are very much more in the vein of traditional anime. He's not a guy who would be out of place working on weird Eroge games for PC. Put it that way. But to come back to your original question, because we sidetracked a bit there, Kitase and Ito as a team, yes, I think it's a wonderful idea. However, the other thing is, as somebody who has lost a lot of interest in Final Fantasy and feels like, to be honest, Final Fantasy has lost its relevance in the last decade or so, big time, I think that Square is in dire need of fresh blood looking at games. Yeah, I mean, okay, there's an analogy here. How am I for time, by the way?
Yeah, no, you've got another couple minutes yet. Go on, you're all right.
Okay, analogy time. So, Green Day. What a weird thing to say. But let me talk about Green Day for a second. This is, very much speaks to me because that was my era and my music and all that kind of stuff. And they are a punk band. And, their early albums are writing about the things that matter to them and writing about them from a very young, inexperienced perspective. And then American Idiot happened. And that album is, in my opinion, a masterpiece. It's a really clever piece of music making. It's really interesting because it's a story as well as an album, which is how they've made it into a Broadway play and all of that.
Oh yeah.
But the success of that is the Green Day equivalent to Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that.
And what's happened with Green Day then is you've had their subsequent albums, and aside from the fact that Billy Joe is coked up off his head or whatever, and probably that is having a massive effect, you're starting to get this situation where they're still making the same type of music, but they are becoming old men writing about teenage issues, essentially. And I feel like to an extent that is what has happened with Final Fantasy. If we look at Final Fantasy 13 for a moment, I think the best executed story in that game is the story of a father trying to rescue his son. And I think that is the best executed story. And he's definitely the best character in that game. And I think that is the best executed story in that game because the people telling it are fathers. And not that Sakaguchi and Ito and people weren't fathers and things. They were when they were making games like Final Fantasy VI and Final Fantasy VII. But I do think it started to become older men telling teenage stories. And I think there's two paths you then take there. You take the Final Fantasy 12 path, which is Final Fantasy 12 is just flat out an adult story. There's a couple of teenage kind of cipher characters so that younger people can use them as a gateway to the world. But it's a game really about kingdoms and about responsibility and grief and all that kind of stuff. You can go the Final Fantasy 9 path, which is to make it really whimsical and kind of take an adult approach to it and have an adult eye on it. Or you can go the Final Fantasy 13 path, which is try to make the same kind of game Final Fantasy 7 was. Which Final Fantasy 7 was a punk rock game. It was a game that opened with you fucking bombing a government building. And Final Fantasy 13, 100% definitely is an attempt to replicate that feeling. That is a game where for a good 60% of it, you are on the run from the government. The government in this instance happens to be a religious organization, but it's the government. But I don't feel like that resonates as much. I think the place they tell that story from is very different from the place they told Final Fantasy VII from. And people change. That's the point. That's the problem. People do change. I do think for that reason, fresh blood is absolutely vital for that series. So, Ito and Katase would be a great team. But is it necessarily the team that's going to build a strong future for that franchise by bringing new people up and coming? Who is the next, considering I think that he might have lost it a little bit, who is the next Tetsuya Nomura?
That is a good question. Who would you suggest as upcoming names at Square Enix who could possibly mantle a mainline Final Fantasy down the line?
Well, the irony is 2 years ago, I wrote about Hajime Tabata, and the words that I said were very, very, very specific indeed. And bully to me, he is now the director of. I'm just quickly trying to track down the thing and see what I wrote here. Got it. Okay. So I wrote, his work on Final Fantasy Type 0 is stellar and marks him as a potential director of a big screen Final Fantasy one day. Tabata is a face to watch for the future. And 2 years later, he's directing Final Fantasy 15, albeit through circumstances where Nomura has left or been removed. Make your own conclusions from the project. So he's a big name, but others, it's like, you have to think that Nomura on 7 was an art director and he contributed a little bit to the story. But to credit him with Cloud's personality would be incorrect. He certainly had an influence, but he was the artist. And then later on, he became a bigger influence. And, I would struggle. I know more about the people behind these games than most, and I would struggle to name you who that fresh blood is. And it's sometimes, because I think the worry is that it can lead you down a dangerous path. The other example that I can use, using another game series that I love very dearly and know a lot about is kind of Street Fighter 3, where Street Fighter 3 was made by people who had got into Street Fighter 2 and at the very, very highest level. At a competitive level, let's say. The end result was they made three Street Fighter 3 series games that were all deeply technical, like deeply, to the point where it was a problem with Street Fighter 3 because while many of the purists who love the technical side regard it as the best entry in the series, on the flip side, the average person who just wants to pick up a controller or a stick and mash out fireballs and uppercuts doesn't like Street Fighter 3 because they can't get into parrying and all that kind of crazy stuff that game has. And that was a problem. And it took somebody like the absolutely marvelous Yoshinori Ono to come in, look at the game, and say, no, we're going to make it the old style. And he made it the old style with a passion. And I think the danger is, if you are the people who have been making it forever, you either end up cynically trying to recreate stuff from the past, and that doesn't always work, or you end up going down the garden path, so to speak, and making weird things. You know, it's a reason why I'm really glad that Mass Effect has been handed off to a different team, because I think, you know, somebody will be able to look at that with a really fresh eye, and I feel like that's what Final Fantasy desperately needs, a really fresh eye. You know, something that's really out there and different. Because if you think about it, you know, the vastly successful Final Fantasy VII, it came out of left field. It was a completely different game to the other Final Fantasies, not just because it was 3D and all that kind of stuff. And there's definitely, you know, a through line. You can see where in Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII came from. But if you look at that game aesthetically, it's a completely different beast to anything that came before. And I think capturing that again is really important. I don't know that Final Fantasy can ever reach that success again, but, you know, you miss 100% of the chances you don't take, so they might as well shoot for it.
Touched upon how Curse wasn't, well, not so much wasn't as it was the first game in the series without Schaefer or Ron Gilbert, or and like since like after obviously they left LucasArts, they went on to, you know, find Double Fine. And well, Gilbert did his own thing. Schaefer went on to find Double Fine.
Yeah, Gilbert wandered off into his own little weird grumpy obscurity for a bit. Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah. And although Gilbert did join Schaefer,
he did. He's come back. It's good. I mean, it's great to, you know, it was the same thing when you kind of looked at Curse of Monkey Island, especially with the LucasArts count. I mean, it's primarily because they're all at LucasArts, but the team always kind of stuck together. And I mean, even the voice actors for Curse of Monkey Island have definitely still crossed paths here and there over the years. But yeah, Tim Schafer and Ron Gilbert just kind of go hand in hand. And it's always great to kind of, you know, whenever you hear that they're going to work together. I mean, The Cave was brilliant. Like, it was completely unexpected, really, from what everyone thought it was going to be. It was like, oh, they're going to make a new point and click adventure game. And it kind of was, and it kind of wasn't. You know, it was this, you know, it comes back to this whole, you know, the genre needed to adapt. And that's what The Cave was, and I frankly think it's brilliant. There's some people who don't rate it very highly. I think the character, you know, it's got all those quirky characters that you want from an adventure game. It's got some really fantastic puzzles, and the narrative is just so weird, so very, very weird. And it's great, you know, it feels in some ways kind of very much like a successor, or a spiritual successor to something like Day of the Tentacle.
I mean, like, I know Gilbert's left Double Fine now, like he left last year after The Cave. So, I know he's back off doing his own thing now, doing iOS games, is it? I can't mind.
Yeah, he's released a couple so far, oddly enough, pirate themed. There's a couple of people, I haven't really checked it out. I think he's kind of done a Ray, really, in terms of sort of taking a bit more of a step back away from games as a whole. I think he's an odd character, but one I respect massively and would more than happily sit down and bend his ear for numerous hours about Monkey Island and everything else that went down at LucasArts. Same for Tim Schafer as well. I'd love the opportunity to chat to him.
That's pretty much me with Naughty Dog and The Last of Us. Right, sorry. Although I know I got to do that recently when I talked to Neil Druckmann, but like that's pretty much me. Anyways, like that's
is that you're done now? You can retire gracefully. You're like, I'm done. That's it. Pinnacle reached.
No, definitely not. Definitely not, because like I only got half an hour on that call. God damn it!
Oh my God.
There's never enough time to ask all questions in the world about The Last of Us. But I digress. But I digress. I'm getting away from the point. and like as well like we mentioned Tim Schafer as well as Double Fine, and you know, kind of the resurgence of point and click. We have to talk about Broken Age as well.
Yes.
Because like that's kind of come up in a big way, because it was, you know, at the time the biggest, you know, crowd-funded game or on Kickstarter, anyways.
Yeah, there's a few million put into it.
So 3.45 million.
Yes, yeah, it's a lot. To be honest, it doesn't feel like it should have cost that much, for something that's taken this long to kind of come out. Broken Age was an interesting game for me. I mean, the minute it came up, again, I'm a sucker. This is how you suck money out my wallet. You tell me that Ron Gilbert or Tim Schafer are making a new point-and-click adventure game, I'll give you whatever I have in my wallet at that time. And in the case of Tim Schafer, I won't bother you for about a year or so as to whether or not you actually deliver on it. But yeah, Broken Age was a weird one for me. I felt like it started off, the beginning felt really slow. And again, I think a lot of it ties back down to the evolution of point and click again. I felt like this took a bit of a step backwards. You know, Telltale have done a really good job of integrating modern control mechanics into the point and click genre. Broken Age, it's all one button input. It's almost like it's developed for mobile, in the sense that you just literally push things, and that's kind of it. You know, it doesn't have the level of complexity, that a lot of kind of veteran point and click gamers would want from a game. It felt kind of like you were just pushing a story along, as opposed to being actively engaged with it. There was no point where I really felt kind of, oh, you know, I really want to play this and I want to finish this. And yeah, I really want Act 2. Act 2 looks like it's going to pick up in a big way. I really like, you know, in Act 1, I liked how they kind of flick between the two characters. For those who don't know, Broken Age is set between two different characters, a male and there's a female character. And they're both in different time periods. And throughout the game, you can actually switch between them. So if you get stuck, or in my case bored, of playing one character, you can switch over to the other, and then eventually you'll reach a certain point and it will force you back over to the other one. And then by the end of the game, something happens. I won't spoil it. And then part 2 is going to happen. But yeah, by the end of part 1, part 2 looked like it was going to pick up in a lot better way. But yeah, I really wasn't impressed with Broken Age. It didn't leave me thinking this is what I would expect from necessarily this amount of money. I mean, money doesn't necessarily fuel creativity. But yeah, it's not what I would have expected from something that Tim Schafer had produced. Was a bit of a letdown for me. I don't know, have you played it? What did you think?
I've not had a chance to play it yet. I know I did a couple of new stuff on it for V247 while I was there when it was announced, and I did a big, you know, op-ed on it, on how it was kind of not so much I'm trying to find the op-ed was kind of focused on how there was kind of parallels to it and what Radiohead did with In Rainbows. Not so much in that, you know, it managed to raise so much money for X and Y or whatever, because like, if anything, I think there wasn't really that much money spent into In Rainbows when it came out. Like, it was, if you remember, it was kind of a pay what you like model.
Yeah.
But it was so much the occasion of it. Like, Radiohead managed to eschew its former record label, like Parlophone, and like, up until like the physical release, I don't know, it's like there was no record label for In Rainbows, and it was only a few months later that the album did get a physical release through XL Recordings. But up until then, there was no record label, and the same could be said of Double Fine, because like they had no publisher, like they had no THQ for its games. It had no Microsoft game studios for its games, like Iron Brigade, or in the case of THQ, Stacked, or EA partners, and for something like maybe, to do Brutal Legend 2. That was the game I was thinking of, by the way.
Brutal Legend was bloody good though.
Yeah. I mean, like, I have Brutal Legend here somewhere, but I've yet to play it.
Play it, man. Just don't people just get hung up on this whole. It was a huge controversy around it. They're like, it's going to be this action game. And they're like, it's not an action game, it's an RTS. And it's like, it's not really either of those things. And I mean, the RTS elements aren't really RTS elements. It's a bit like, it's like calling the Assassin's Creed, flipping tower defense game. It's not.
Technically, Assassin's Creed was tower defense in Revelations.
A little bit,
yeah.
But yeah, it's like drawing a comparison to that. It's a fantastic game. Like it's one of those. Brutal Legend feels like the game that Tim Schafer should have gone away and made with that money. In terms of saying we're gonna revive, the heart of point and click. Brutal Legend holds a lot of that, not in the sense of the actual core gameplay or the genre, but in terms of the characters. It's got memorable characters. It's funny as hell. The dialogue's great. The story's great. Tim seems to have this thing where he can't seem to quite get all the pieces of the puzzle to fit together in terms of this is how we can make like a really, really great game. Brutal Legend was kind of missing. A lot of people didn't really understand what it was trying to be. And Broken Age was a case of it's trying to be point and click, but it's missing a lot of the key elements. There are no memorable characters, with the exception of the wolf. There are no, there's no real kind of funny dialogue. There's no, great. I mean, the story's okay so far. Like I said, I think it's going to pick up in part 2, but there was nothing there that really gripped me in terms of this is going to be amazing and pushing it forward.
What about the kind of Western push on the series as of late? Because obviously there's the upcoming games for 3DS and Wii U. I can't mind their bloody
Sonic Boom. Yeah.
Oh, that's what. Hell, it actually is called Sonic Boom. Christ.
Oh, I just don't care anymore. I just do not care anymore because they're not the same games that I played as a kid, and I think that's okay. I think it's okay for me to say this isn't aimed at me anymore and to accept that and move on. It's kind of like whenever they redid Devil May Cry, right? And while I think Devil May Cry is cool, I don't have any emotional investment in it, and so I'm okay with the MC, but a lot of people weren't. It's like, that's okay. You still have those games, and those games are not going to change. It's okay for those games to be different. It's okay to do a new DMC. People get really riled up about these things. And I think it's kind of a danger. Like, you see, I went out for a run last night with my friend, right? And, we were running through Oxford and I saw a kid with a Sonic t-shirt on. I was like, cool, Sonic t-shirt. I didn't say that because, I didn't want to come across as creepy. But, but if you think about like, what's his experience of Sonic? It's probably Sonic games for the Wii and the Sonic X cartoon series and stuff.
Yeah.
Things that are just they are a world away from me. I grew up on like the British comic and the old Sonic cartoon show and stuff, because it was a kind of a European one and an American one. The American was a bit more edgy and badass and the European was a bit more kind of comical and fun. But, it's like, that is just a different thing. It's like Turtles. Right? I loved the Turtles growing up. And then you look at what they look like now, and it looks like The Rock dressed as a turtle. I was like, what the hell is this? It's like, or you just look at it and think, that's fundamentally wrong. Why are they calling each other Leo and Raph, they always called each other by their full names. Like, that's just not right. That's just disrespectful to each other. and I think you just need to let go. See, people are getting annoyed about Transformers, like the Michael Bay Transformers. Like, yeah, they're awful, but somebody must like them. I don't have any investment in that. So with Sonic, I think at some point you just need to let go and say, there's my childhood and then there's a break and then there's somebody else's childhood, and those two shouldn't meet. And I think it's I probably feel the same playing Sonic Generations, that somebody who was my age at the time feels playing Sonic 3. They probably think, why would anybody want to play this? This is like, this isn't Sonic. You know, this is like, why is he in 2 dimensions? Where's his magical friends? Why can't he change into a rocket? Why can't he, why doesn't he have a homing attack, you know? So I think it's better just to separate them and just admit defeat. Although to do a 5 out of 10 plug, I wrote a piece, for the 5th issue where I went to the Summer of Sonic Fan Expo, and kind of reconnected with my childhood a bit. And that was really interesting to see, like, sort of saying, why do you like Sonic to these people? And they said, well, you know, it's like, because it's all about, and they said to me, like, it's all about kind of being with your friends and fitting in. Like, they were saying that's what the Sonic games mean to them. They're all about friendship. And so all those mascots that I hate are actually something that those people find really inspirational. And it put a whole new spin on it for me and made me think, wow, it's really cool. And then I said, you know, so what's your favorite Sonic game? They said Sonic Heroes, and I went, fucking hell, Sonic Heroes. that's history's worst moment. But it's totally different. It's like, yeah, you know, people are really into new comics and all about Sonic and his friends hanging out and having fun. Whereas for me, it was always about kind of Sonic versus the world and fighting off against Robotnik, and it was only like Tails and Knuckles. That was, once the more mascots you added, I thought the worse it gets. It was really interesting, and people were like, nah, it's even better. You've got even more cool characters.
It's kind of the Doctor Who factor, isn't it? Kind
of, yeah. It's a bit like, yeah. In fact, I think that's probably a really good analogy. It's like, yeah, you get people who are like, oh, who's your favorite Doctor Who? Like, oh, obviously Tom Baker or something like that. And then you get people who are like, who's your Doctor Who? You go, Matt Smith. Like, Matt Smith. That's not even how Daleks are meant to talk, you know. His voice is 2 semitones way too high. Why these monsters aren't made of rubber? What's going on? It's like, it's only the same thing. But there's people that enjoy both. There's people that only enjoy old Doctor Who. There's people that only enjoy new Doctor Who. I think that's a really good way of describing it. Imagine somebody who's only watched new Doctor Who going back and watching ones from the 70s, which is more like some kind of soap opera that just happens to involve monsters. Doctor Who standing at the kitchen sink for about, sorry, he's the Doctor, he's not Doctor Who. The Doctor standing at like the kitchen sink for about 30 minutes, just yakking about aliens, you know, just having a wee chat, having a cup of tea, and then suddenly somebody turns up compared to the kind of whiz-bang wallopers CG fest that is modern Doctor Who. But that's okay, you know, things are allowed to be reinvented. The problem with Sonic is that Sonic never really got a reboot. He did get coloured irises when he came out for the Dreamcast, but they tried to reboot it with Sonic. It's just called Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, the 2006 game.
Sonic 06, which is, I think if you go onto Wikipedia, it's actually listed as one of the worst video games ever made.
I'm actually going to check that right now.
I'm pretty sure you'll see it on the list of worst games ever made. While you're looking this up, I should say that I should have mentioned Sonic CD, because people will think I haven't played that, but I have. I played it in the PC, played it in Mega CD, and I've played it for the 360, and I don't think it's as good as the other ones. Everybody says it's the best, but yeah, I don't know. Something just never quite clicked for me. I never thought it was as good as the other ones, but I have played it, so it's just one for the Sonic fans, like my friend Lewis, that'll probably listen to this and be like, God, he didn't mention Sonic CD, you Philistine. So, is it listed as one of the worst games ever?
I can't seem to find it.
Right, I'm gonna look this up then. Two can play at this game. Have you got any favorite Sonic games?
I've not really played that many Sonic games, to be frank. Which is kind of a massive fault of mine. Yes, admittedly.
Okay, here we go. Critical reception. So if you look at the very second paragraph, it says the game faced multiple issues during development, which resulted in rushing the product despite existing bugs. Who would have thought? Both versions have received almost exclusively negative reviews. So you go to the critical reception. Sonic the Hedgehog received predominantly negative reviews and is considered one of the worst video games ever made.
Oh,
A mess from top to bottom. It was ranked as Game Trailer said it was one of the top 10 most disappointing games of the decade. Games TM magazine said it was the biggest game franchise that had lost its way, saying, "The Blue Hedgehog's next-gen efforts have been nothing short of appalling, none more so than his 2006 appearance."
Christ. And Play magazine as well, they're talking...
I think give it a 9.5 out of 10.
although they reassessed it as an 8.5, and then they put it back down to a 5.5 for PS3.
Oh man, what were they thinking? Oh yeah, and there's also a bit where I haven't actually played Sonic 06 because why would I flagellate myself? But yeah, there's a bit where he has like a romantic relationship with a human. and he kisses a girl, and it's like the most bizarrely cringeworthy kiss in video game history. Yeah, and also Games TM said Sonic's relationship and kiss with Princess Elise truly marked the point where the series had veered off into absolute nonsense. And even there's a Sonic 06 level in Sonic Generations, which is quite disappointing because you'd think you would want to cover that up. But it's by far the worst level in Generations as well. It's really, really poor. It's called Crisis City. And it's just like, Crisis City, you said it, mate. You said it.
I am absolutely flabbergasted right now.
What, by how bad that game is?
By how bad that game is, and then I'm only reading about it. I've never actually played it, although, quite frankly, even by reading it, I actually want to play it now.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do sometime is I would like to do a kind of games marathon for charity, and I'll do like Heaven or Hell. People can vote on whether I play like a game I'll actually enjoy, or Sonic 06. Where I just end up, I don't know, yeah. Giving up live on air and going head first through the TV to try and escape life. Yeah, it's like, that it just sounds so bad. I wouldn't be able to take it.
Oh Christ, Eurogamer gave it a 2 out of 10.
That's pretty generous. You wonder why they gave it 2, wouldn't you? Seriously, what did it do to deserve those 2 marks?
Oh God.
Yeah, so that's definitely the lowest point. And that was the reboot. That was meant to be the one that was good again. You can understand how people after that didn't really believe them. And then what came out after that was Sonic Unleashed, that I wrote the notorious breakup letter to Sonic review of. And then they did like Sonic 4 and Generations, and then the latest one's called Lost World. And it again was really, really poorly received as well. It just got kind of slated a bit. So it's just like, it's okay to give up. It'd be better if they stopped, I think. It's okay. It's okay to say, you know what, these games aren't good anymore. I think it's totally okay to say, you know what, these aren't good anymore. Sonic's past his prime, and we're just not going to. We're just gonna. You know the shit. We know the shit. We're not going to pretend that we've learned anything. So let's just let the kids play them, right?
I don't know where that sits on the whole the scale for me. I think I also like in my top 10 would be Sonic 2. Love Sonic 2 again for pretty much the same reasons as Streets of Rage. The soundtrack, the nostalgia value, phenomenal. Anyway, Metal Gear, and I don't know. I'd probably say Solid is probably my favourite, but they're all pretty good. I quite like the line. I'd say maybe the lion's share of 2, but there are moments that I get why people don't like it, and there's a few bits that really annoy me as well about it too. Like trying to find the AK-47. Do you remember that bit?
Yeah.
Oh, what the signposting was wrong there.
In the core shell one, yeah.
Something was wrong. Unless I just didn't listen to a codec or something. I don't know. Maybe I got it wrong, but yeah, there was a few little bits that were weird. But I really love, for me, and I'm sure this isn't really a spoiler, right? I won't do too big a spoiler.
Go for it.
when you start to realise that things are going dreadfully wrong, do you remember when it starts to go really glitchy towards the end?
Arsenal gear.
Yeah, I'm sure it's when Raiden's like had all his clothes nicked, it's that bit, right? And he's just been tortured and stuff. And you just escape and everything gets really strange, like Campbell. You can see he looks kind of like a robot and it's...
Yeah, that kind of scared me, like, so bad as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but like, I was 10 when I was playing Metal Gear Solid 2, and like, there's this call you get from the Colonel, like, when you're going on the Ascendant Colon before you meet Snake. And, like, there's the wee video pane that opens up. And to the left, there's the face of the Colonel. And, like, he kind of says, destroy the final weapon, in that kind of robotic voice, destroy the final weapon. Metal Gear. And it's not even what he says, or how he says it, or kind of, you know, harken back to the old SNES Metal Gear games. It's just, look at his face when he's saying it. He glitches out into a kind of skull face.
No, totally.
Yeah, and like when I saw that, I literally ran out of the room and just literally screamed, "Mommy!" Because it scared me so bad as a 10-year-old. Like even seeing it now, and I'm a 23-year-old man, I still get scared seeing that. That scene just kind of tortured me for life.
So the conclusion here is that Hideo Kojima is a very evil man.
He is a very evil man.
but you know what? Like, I got kind of unnerved too. Not for the same reasons, but obviously there's a bit of an age gap between us. But this is the point where I start to think things aren't quite how they should be right now. What is actually? You start to question, right? You start to think, what is actually going on here? Because you always got the impression, like, Raiden was always like, Colonel, what are you not telling me, sort of thing. You start to twig, you start to think, something is definitely not right here. And a lot of what I've done is pretty similar to the first game.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the point of it, right? It's like a recreation of, like, the Shadow Moses incident.
Yeah.
To a degree. That was really clever, though. See that change in pace? I really like it when games do stuff like that, like when they start to glitch out. Like in Arkham Asylum. When the Scarecrow starts getting to you and the game glitches, do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
That's so clever, and it's that moment when you see little flickers on the screen. And hey, I tell you what did that really well recently was PT.
Yeah.
The Silent Hills interactive thing. That was cool.
Yeah, I've not played PT yet, and chances are I'm probably not, even though it's on my PS4, waiting to be played, even though I'll probably not touch it ever.
It's genuinely scary, like, believe the hype. Like, a lot of people are, the most scariest game ever made. It's not the most scariest thing ever made, right? But it's bloody scary. Like, it really is. Like, and it's weird because that game glitches out a lot as well on purpose, to sort of keep you on the edge of your seat. And the scary thing for me was the first time I played it was on my own. I managed to complete it with the help of a guide because the end solution is so weird. I don't know. I don't think there's even a consensus on how you actually do it yet. But anyway, so I did it the first time, thought, that's cool, saw the Silent Hill little teaser at the end, I thought, awesome. Had friends round, and I was like, hey, they were like, have you got it? Can we see it? Like, we hear it's really scary. I'm like, yeah, let's stick it on. And I was sitting there trying to be all kind of like, oh, watch out, scary bit coming up, and then it wouldn't happen, and I'd be like, oh, okay, there's meant to be a big scary bit here. I'd turn around, and then it would happen. I'm like, you assholes. Like, they mix it up each time. Like, there's so many variables that change where things happen. So you never can quite bank on where scary bits are going to come. That's so clever and devious. Yeah, it's cool, man. It's a real lesson in atmosphere. I think it reminds me of The Room, Silent Hill 4. You know, the first person bits. Yeah. So if they bring back first person bits in Silent Hill, because the new one rather, Silent Hills, Kojima's actually said that it's not really reflective of what the final game's going to be like.
Yeah.
Really hope the interiors are like that. Because that would be really scary if they were. Like, yeah, bring it on, like. But yeah, Metal Gear, so... I love... the last one I really played a lot of was Peace Walker.
Yeah.
And I came to that really late, actually. I got the Vita version in the HD pack.
Yeah.
That is a great game. That is a really good game. Like, it's Pokemon with Metal Gear, right?
Yeah.
To a degree, you know, capturing all the troops and stuff. I love the base micromanagement. I love the comic book style cutscenes. It's just great. There's a little bit of a grind, you know, if you want to like get loads of troops and stuff. There's a lot of playing all the little levels over and over, but it's perfect for mobile play, you know, little burst play like that. And I'm really glad they brought that back for Metal Gear 5 actually, because that looks really cool. Yeah. And really funny. Like, have you seen the bit where Snake, Big Boss, airlifts the sheep.
Yes.
That is hilarious, and he kind of goes as he flies off of the screen, and then you go back to Mother Base and he's there, and you can like use the milk to like feed your troops and stuff. That is so clever, like, and daft at the same time. Because I think like Ground Zeroes took itself a little bit too seriously. I think it was kind of a tone setter. I think Kojima did it to sort of say, look, this is going to be a more serious game than you know. And then a few months later, hey look, we're airlifting sheep now. We're back. You know, it's not all serious. So that's cool. It just reminded me actually all the weird stuff you can do with the cardboard boxes now as well. Have you seen this? You can like stand up inside the box and the top of it falls down and it's like a picture of a naked woman.
Yeah.
And you can distract guards, or it's just really stupid. Yeah. And really pervy as well. I don't know, there's probably going to be some sort of article written about it at some point, but.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Metal Gear, I love it. And how many games can you say, like, the franchises can consistently have such memorable bosses as well?
Yeah. Like,
you know, like, so do you have a favourite Metal Gear?
Easily, Metal Gear Solid 3. Easily.
Oh, badass, yeah.
Without a question of it, like, besides The Last of Us, that is my favourite game ever. Just solely for the boss. Well, not solely for the boss, because like there's so many great elements about Metal Gear Metal Gear Solid 3 I could kind of pick out, like the whole hunting for your food, and you had to patch yourself up manually rather than just eat rations to gain health back. Like, I really love that kind of aspect of it. But in terms, like, that was, not to mention as well, like, I think Metal Gear Solid 3 had the best boss fights in the series, bar none, because like you had the Cobras, which was kind of invocative of emotions in battle, basically, but like the boss is perhaps easily my favorite, if not one of my favorite game characters in a game, because I think for all the stick Kojima rightly sometimes gets on how he portrays female characters, like with Quiet Metal Gear Solid 5, or what happened at the end of Ground Zeroes, I think the boss was well written. Her backstory was great. Laurie Allen was great as the boss voice, and like I remember me and you were at the BAFTA thing a couple of years ago when Kojima was in town for Eurogamer.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, and I was asking him about the boss and if he kind of had the inspiration for the eventually take up the mantle of the series after Snake or Raiden, or like was the feedback kind of influenced it that way?
Hi, Johnny Cullen, freelance. In the past, I have to say first off, MGS3 is the reason why I wanted to become a games journalist, and I thank you for that. One of the main reasons why I enjoyed MGS3 is because of the boss character. And you said in the past that if outside of the Snakes you'd like to make a game based on the boss or the Cobras. Did you create the boss in mind as a potential lead character whilst making MGS3, or did the positive reaction from the community possibly lead into, you know, that kind of direction?
当然スネークと、スネークっていうのはその大体、不正のゲームだったんですけども、メタルギアっていうのは。
First of all, I think up until that point, Metal Gear had always been a very paternalistic kind of game, but I wanted to make something that had more of a motherly character, and that's where the concept for the boss came from.
作った時は当然、彼女を主人公にとか全然考えてなかったんですけども、
So, in response to your question, no, I did not think that, the boss would be, I didn't think of her as a main character when I originally created that character. She just sort of evolved into that. She ended up being a very powerful character, a very attractive character to a lot of people. And I think, after especially hearing back from a lot of fans about how much they admire the boss and that character, it really made me realize that, aside from Raiden, who's just a completely different type of character, if I want to create another Metal Gear Solid with someone who could actually take the place of Snake, really I think within my mind there's really no one else besides the boss who could really pull it off.
It's kind of why I really want a boss-led Metal Gear Solid game from Kojima, although I don't think that's going to probably happen now. Although I'd like to be wrong, but like I would badly love a boss-led Metal Gear Solid 6 with Kojima at the helm, doing the secret mission she mentioned at the end of Metal Gear Solid 3. Normandy. In fact, that was what was going to happen for Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah, there was loads of things. I remember, and first of all, right, you're dead right about the boss. Like, what an insanely good character. I had a tragic boss fight as well, which I won't spoil for people who haven't played it. But I do recall there was a lot of rumours about. I'm sure Kojima himself said that he'd like to do it at some point.
Yeah, like he mentioned it a couple of years ago. In fact, if you go way back, like when Rising was reannounced that Rising was reannounced as coming from Platinum rather than Kojima Productions, there was this, if you'll remember, this documentary kind of thing. And right at the start, Kojima says, after we came back from Metal Gear Solid 4, we were going to do Metal Gear Solid. I wanted to pass off Metal Gear Solid 5 to this other team so I could do my own thing, but this other team, I gave them this remit to do Metal Gear Solid 5, featuring the boss, the Cobras, and Normandy. I was like, why?
Can you imagine, right? Like, just picture this: the Normandy beach landings with the boss and Cobra unit just charging across the sand, and then that's like the first mission. And then, hey, you've got this whole the whole of the surrounding area, and perhaps other countries as well. Maybe it'll go even further.
Yeah.
Open world style, that would be awesome, honestly. And there's so much story potential as well. There's so much stuff that you get in Metal Gear Solid 3 that's kind of either hinted at or described very loosely about the Cobra's past.
Yeah.
You could flesh that out so well.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, like, I'm keen to know what you think about this, right? Because I've had this conversation with a lot of people. Is Metal Gear Solid 5 going to end with Operation Intrude from the NES game? So Solid Snake's first mission.
Yeah.
As he emerges, as he parachutes into outer heaven.
Yeah.
To take down his dad, essentially.
Yeah.
Now, how badass, how awesome a full circle would that be?
I think that's going to happen. I think it's going to have David Hayter as well. Has to.
There's something going on there, isn't there? Because
it's obvious. It's so obvious by now something's happening with Hayter.
Because he's like, I'm not in it. Well, maybe I might be. It's like, I'll give it a rest. And I don't know. So then after that, where else is there to go, really? So obviously the Normandy thing might be the next logical step after that. Because what Metal Gear Solid 5's out, is there even a quarter for it yet? It's Q3 next year or something?
Apparently it's going to be spring next year.
Oh, really? Cool. Okay.
I'm just kind of figuring, it's not being official yet, but yeah. I'm just going off the hive mind, basically.
Well, I wasn't joking when I said I've not been checking out game news for a while. I'm taking a bit of a sabbatical from it. I'll get back into it soon. But yeah, do you remember? Obviously you do remember the bit at the end of Metal Gear 4, right? When it kind of goes like the PS1 game.
Yeah.
Do that again, but with they couldn't use the NES game, but just remake it in today's graphics. That whole sequence. There's a young David Hayter, young Solid Snake. I think at the time in the chronology it was set in 1992. In that world, I think it was 92. I think the game itself came out in 87, I think. I'm guessing. Anyway, so have that happen, have the young Solid Snake, played by David Hayter, do his first mission after retirement, and unknown to him, he's actually going off into the jungle to kill his dad, who you've just played as through the whole game.
Yeah.
That would be awesome if they did that.
Yeah, I would
make it a little bit playable. Kind of throwing some nods to the old to the PS1 game as well. Some foreshadowing kind of stuff. I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I would definitely love that.
So I want your opinion on this one, right, man? So who do you think Skullface is?
I don't know. I think maybe, and this is very out there, but Volgan. You
think so? I suppose it would make sense after, the whole getting electrocuted and burned and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's Volgan.
That'd be pretty cool. It would say, I think the only downside to that would be dude, how are you still alive?
Exactly.
All of that. Because he comes back like 3 times, doesn't he? Like, or twice maybe even? Like,
yeah, he comes back twice. Once after the boss fight in Groznygrad, and then the second time is like once you cross the bridge in the Shagohod. No, it's not even twice. He comes back a third time, standing on the back aloft on the Shagohod with, like, he basically plugs himself under the Shagohod. And and then it's only after like a freak electric thunderstorm, he just basically dies, and like the bullets on him just basically kill him after that thunderstrike. I was like, what the fuck?
That's right, man. Oh man, like, yeah.
In fairness, though, that is pretty much classic Kojima.
He's a good bad guy. Like, let's be honest, he's a really nasty character. Like, he would be great. I don't know. It couldn't be someone new, I don't think. I don't think it would be right to bring someone new as a main villain at this stage. Cause like you want someone more established, right? And Vaughan probably has a really good reason to want Snake dead, obviously. But yeah. Do you think, as well, like this is another thing, there's like a sort of blonde child soldier in it. Have you seen this guy? Can't remember his name, but a lot of people are
Eli.
Yeah, a lot of people are speculating that he's liquid.
Yeah, that is liquid. It's easy, like, it's kind of, like, the hints I've kind of gotten from the trailers say that is easily, liquid. And not to mention, like, have you seen, Dan Dawkins stuff? Like, Dan
Dawkins, I actually love that guy. Like we've spoken a few times on Twitter about Metal Gear. He's such a mega fan, probably not as much as you, but he's close, I think. What did he write a thing about it?
He did a video of the E3 trailer, and it was so specific, so in detail, that it just basically mentioned, like, he goes into detail about how Eli is basically liquid.
He's got the look. This is the thing. Like, it looks like it could be young Liquid, and the only thing I maybe would take some issue with is how convenient is it that they're both in this same continent? Like, why would they both like happen across each other at the same time? My guess is that he's George Sears is out there training the kid troops, because didn't he do that, right? He trained Ryan, so maybe that's the connection between them all. Because obviously George Sears is a solid Snake clone, isn't he? Well, he's a Big Boss clone as well.
Yeah, he was part of the Lesson Palm program. So
man, we're getting so deep into this. You this is why it's good, though, right? This is why Metal Gear's so awesome, because you can speculate like this till the cows come home and never quite cover everything.
Yeah, Quake is like a walk in a fucking horrendous wood, basically, with a load of guns. And you don't need to embellish it too much. So yeah, by all means bring it back, but I think maybe like an indie reboot would be more interesting to me than a big budget one.
Interesting.
It'll never happen, but yeah.
I mean, like, Bethesda could bring it back as a kind of esports thing, like with Quake 3.
Yeah, I think they're more likely to go that route, if they do anything. But you look at the recent successes in esports and failures, and you say, well, what's that Ubisoft shooter that they did?
Shootermania or something?
Yeah, Shootmania. A flop, basically. Yeah. I don't know, maybe it makes the money, but like it seemed to me like it flopped completely, and that was essentially Quake 3 Arena reinvented as kind of Trackmania, and with some good ideas for sure. And you look at like Call of Duty's attempt to become an esport. Does anyone really think of Call of Duty in the same sense that they think of, League of Legends or Dota 2 or even Hearthstone? I don't think so. I think most people think, that's the kind of Johnny come lately shooter trying to muscle its way in. And shooters don't make terribly good spectator sports when they are like massive team-based things. So I mean, they could do it. Like, there's definitely routes, but the routes basically are kind of, as you say, a Wolfenstein New Order type thing, or a Quake 3 Arena reboot type thing. I mean, they could always do a Quake 2 thing, but I think that would be the least good of the options.
I mean, like in Call of Duty's defense, like it's really doing esports very well. I mean, like hell, like there's a world championship for every year. And
yeah, I don't know. I feel like.
It's
I mean, I look at it and I just think it's a bit irrelevant. Like
it's popular enough, like.
Oh yeah,
like
sure.
It's substantially popular, but not. I mean, like I know what you mean. Like it's not League of Legends or Dota popular, like, but like it's popular enough. Like it's easily up there. Animals.
Fair enough. I guess I'm just a little bit disinterested in it, and maybe that's the key. I'd much rather see. I mean, I find like as a spectator thing. When I load up the Twitch app on my Xbox One, I know we're going off topic a bit here, but you know, the things that I gravitate towards tend to be games that I play that I am interested in seeing other people do really well in. So Destiny and Dark Souls, or games that or games that like you want to genuinely want to see interesting clashes. So I think it was the Evo Championships for Street Fighter 4.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or Hearthstone Invitationals, that sort of thing. Even actually Counter-Strike works quite well, although it's still a little difficult to follow it. And there's a lot of lulls, but that's lulls rather than lols, by the way. But yeah, like I don't know, Call of Duty for me, it's like watching. I don't know, it's so frenzied. I don't know. It's not for me.
No, I totally get what you mean. And like another way, like Twitch could be useful is learning these kind of other games. Like I watched the League World Finals. Like this comes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of esports and how popular it's gotten now. Because like you were saying before, like when Quake came about, it was kind of like a good comparison would be boxing, like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because like there was prizes being given away, like Carmack's Ferrari. Whereas now you look at esports, like hell, the world finals for League was held in South Korea in the bloody World Cup Stadium in Seoul.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like those things, and Dota 2 as well. You know, you look at the Dota 2 Invitational.
Yeah.
The way that they get people to buy the compendium, which then gives them stuff, which then puts money into the prize pot, which then attracts more people, which then gives more stuff to people who bought the compendium. You know, there are some amazing ways you can make really interesting games and really good esports infrastructure interact with one another. I don't know if you can do it with as easily with shooters, or at least I'm probably selling a lot of it short. It's not my area of expertise, but I would be less interested. I guess the ultimate point is, personally, for a bunch of personal reasons and because I'm biased and whatever, I'd much rather they did a kind of indie reboot of Quake than a big budget reboot of Quake 3 Arena.
Like, what other game would be able to mix, like, you know, like, killing soldiers and stuffing them in lockers and then, like, defusing bombs and, you know, saving the world with, like, bikini model posters in lockers that if you lean towards, you kiss them. It's just, like, it's ridiculous. That this mercenary who's infiltrated this tanker to find this secret nuclear weapon that the US Marine is trying to hide can not only send pictures of this weapon to his partner via computer terminal, but also send photos of bikini models and stuff to make him embarrassed. It's like, why would you put that in there other than just, it's just ridiculous. The kind of, I guess I would say it's a little bit of a kind of Japanese sense of humour. It's a little bit crazy, a little bit zany, a little bit cheeky.
Yeah.
You'd nearly almost think kind of Monty Python-esque in a way. But then at the same time, they pack in all this stuff about genetics and memes and, you know, all this kind of serious philosophical stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, a massive twisting, overarching storyline when it turns out it's all a conspiracy, and then there's these people called the Patriots, and it turns out they're all dead, and it's just like...
Yeah, I just wanted to come on to the Patriots, actually, because, like, that was kind of the like when we meet President Johnson in Shell 2, like that I was just that when he first starts revealing details of the Patriots, you just think, what the fuck is he talking about? like seriously, just like what the actual fuck, and like we find out about the origins of the Patriots with MGS3 and even more so in 4, but like when he first starts talking about the Patriots, you just think, oh, what? And then everything with the end of the tanker section starts kind of making sense in terms of what the Patriots were trying to do in terms of censorship and trying to block out their own name. Like if you tried to say Patriots or Patriot, your nanomachines would actually instead force you to come up and say the
Lally Lulu. Yeah,
Lally Lulu. Try saying that 5 times in a row. And like I remember that specifically because I remember Ocelot saying at the end of the tanker chapter going, yes, returned, because like he was going to return Metal Gear Ray. He's yes, returned to the Patriots, and then the Marine commander goes, Lally Lulu, what you talking about?
And it makes sense. It's just the problem was with it maybe is that it was a bit too wordy for its own good. So while it had lots to say, you ended up forgetting what tied to what until you'd played it over a good few times and it all started kind of making a bit more sense.
Yeah. So, like, coming back to the Patriots as such instead of President Johnson, but like, coming back to, what it was trying to accomplish. So we're in Arsenal gear. After Raiden's tortured by Solidus and Ocelot, who have basically been going snooping around for Raiden's past. And they say non-existent agent for non-existent agency. So basically, at that point, like obviously there's points certainly beforehand where you think, hey, hang on, something's not right here. But going back to that, like they've been torturing Raiden, so that's just happened. Rose called you, yada yada yada.
Naked cartwheels.
You've kind of broken up with Rose, so. You go out on the main floor of Arsenal Gear, and then the Colonel calls you, and this is just after what happened with Emma dying and GW being inserted in the Arsenal Gear, or most of it anyways, because the count stopped, but I digress. Then shit starts going off, because like, the Colonel's just glitching, like, Raiden, do you copy? You must continue your mission. And like,
yeah, that's obviously when Emma's viruses start having the effect, and he just starts freaking out because he's part of GW.
Yeah.
And he starts saying things like, I need scissors 61. But then he, like, if you've been playing it for a while, he starts saying, don't you have anything else to do with your time? And things like that.
Yeah. So,
I thought that bit was great.
It was very funny.
Were you freaked out by the bit when he goes all skeletal?
Yes!
I knew that was coming. I mean, it was pretty freaky. That he just suddenly turns into this weird, like, skeletal face on the coda, and you're like, whoa!
So, I've only told part of the story, I've actually told this full story before with, Dave's episode that's coming up, but I digress, I'll tell it here anyways. So, I was playing the game, in Ascending Colon, just before you meet Snake. I wasn't aware you had to answer the Colonel's calls to unlock the area, where you meet Snake, and before that you had to take a call with Rose, but even before that, there was these couple of calls you had to take with the Colonel, and he goes yada yada yada, blah 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 crap, and then there's this one specific call where he goes, infiltration, such and such and such, destroy the final weapon, Metal Gear. And it's not what he says, it's not how he says it, or even what's in the video pane, but it's just, like you said, John, he goes all skeletal, and like, as a 11-year-old boy playing that, and seeing that, I just went,
Nightmares for weeks.
Nightmares for weeks, exactly. And I just ran out of my bedroom going, Mommy!
Oh dear.
That actually did scar me for life.
It's pretty freaky. But you're not sure whether you're meant to laugh or be freaked out, especially when the radar turns into like a video of just some Japanese model and you're just like, what's going on? Have I broken something? And then later on in the fight with Snake, when it comes up with the mission failed screen, but it says fission mailed, and you're just, and you hear, at first you're like, what's going on? And then you realise the action's still happening on the screen in the corner.
Yeah, and then if you actually die, you hear the Colonel cackle in that kind of robotic voice.
Yeah, it was pretty weird.
And like, there was another aspect as well. Okay. Oh, yes! Foreshadowing. If you think back very carefully, like, there were certain bits that, like, kind of reminded you of Kodak calls between Snake and Colonel Campbell in MGS1. And notice how I'm not calling Colonel MGS2 Colonel Campbell, because it's obviously not Colonel Campbell. I just refer to him as the Colonel. Kojima did so as well, but I digress again. Foreshadowing. The calls between Snake and, sorry, not Snake and Raiden and the Colonel are kind of similar between Snake and Colonel Campbell in MGS1. But it's not even that. If you notice very carefully, it's the dialect in some of the Colonel's calls as you go through Shell 1 trying to get to Ames. Once you go through the Shell 1 door, I think it's Shell 1, the Shell 1 door, you kind of hear this, or actually I'll give you a better hint, as this is one such call. You go to the entrance of Arsenal Gear, where Emma dies, but inside there beforehand, there's the directional microphone to pick up Ames's heart pacer, or whatever you call it. So, pacemaker even. So, and you pick that up, and then you answer this kind of optional call from the codec, and the Colonel goes, "You have picked up the directional microphone," and notice the way he says it. You've picked up the directional microphone. It's kind of robotic.
See, I've never noticed that, to be honest.
That kind of, it doesn't sound human. It really, like that aspect of it didn't really sound human at all, and I'm sure he did it at least one more time before that call, and a couple more times before I ran to Emma. But
I'm going to have to go back and replay it now to see if I can spot that, because I've never noticed that before.
To be honest, I'd only thought about this the other day.
I did notice, though, I'm not in my first playthrough, my second playthrough, I did notice that when the ninja appears, it plays the same cue of music that it plays when you first meet Olga on the tanker.
Yeah, and that kind of foreshadowing, not just with Colonel, but with Mr. X and Olga, that was pretty darn genius of Kojima.
That's the thing, I mean, as I've said, there's not many other games out there where there is that much attention, kind of given to absolutely every aspect of the game. I mean, everything, like the environment, the characters, the music, the kind of direction of cutscenes, everything was so carefully considered. Even to the point that it's just, you haven't really seen it outside of that series at all. Just such good kind of direction and precision.
I think the Shivering Isles expansion is, like, worth a mention just on its own. I think that's the best DLC ever for any game. I think it's just fantastic. It's just so weird and so out there, and yeah.
But I take issue with your claim about the Shivering Isles expansion being the best DLC ever.
Oh, go on then. What's your...
That I would probably, in terms of, actually I would go as far as to say the best DLC ever is actually Mass Effect 3 Citadel.
Okay.
Because, like, like, it's not because I don't think Shivernaz is crap or anything. To be honest, I haven't actually not played Shivernaz. But Citadel, like, for all the crap the ending of Mass Effect 3 got, and to an extent it deserved, because it felt like there was no achievement there. Although, like it goes without saying, the kind of vile vitriol BioWare got in its wake was really piss poor. But I digress. Citadel felt like the most kind of make-up apology for what happened at the ending, as well as a kind of perfect goodbye to Shepard and the characters of that world. Because if you think about it, like, as much as we loved Mass Effect for its gameplay, and I know you've mentioned Mass Effect 2 as one of your honorable mentions, and we'll come to that, but like, for Mass Effect, like, as a whole, for all it's worth about its gameplay and whatnot, like, at the end of the day, the thing that most people will love more about that series, and for me as well, of course, is Shepard and the characters. Like, I don't think there's any other better written characters in at least a Western RPG, anyways. And
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and like, not to mention, like, Femship forever.
Yeah, no, same. I'm always. Every time I play through, I can never bring myself to be male Shepard. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I was talking to Jennifer Hale like about a year ago for Eurogamer, and like, she was lovely first off, like, but like, at the same time, Femshep's kind of become that role she's tied to now, like, and God, I think I just love Jennifer Hale as a whole, not just for Mass Effect.
Is that where this is going? You just want to confess your love? Yeah,
I'm basically confessing my love for Jennifer Hale, for Femshep and M. Emmerich in Metal Gear Solid 2. Sorry, I'm distracted now. Sorry. Other honourable mentions, BioWare.
Yes, BioWare games. So, obviously, Mass Effect, and my favourite Mass Effect up to 3 is Mass Effect 2, just because, well, obviously the actual, like, fighting and stuff is 3 is the best one for actual in terms of like gameplay, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
The combat system is best in 3, but I adore the characters in 2, and I like the kind of waiting feeling that 2 has about it. I like the fact that it's all kind of like, it's not like you're just kind of bombastically rushing into battle constantly and stuff like that. There's kind of a kind of real tension and that kind of lets you get to know the characters better. And I just think, the characters in Mass Effect 2 are just, as you said before, like, with, Mass Effect series are just so good. I remember, one of my favorite characters is Thane. I just adore that character. I have a little, so how sad I am. I have a little Thane action figure, which is my pride and joy. And I think it pretty much just boils down to, I think I have a bit of a crush on him. And as far as kind of frog lizard men go,
yeah,
he's got a very sexy voice. And I just think, there's just loads of, like, Morden, again, is just a fantastic character, and just the joy in that game is just talking to these characters.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's just, it's just such a testament to the kind of the writing and the voice acting.
Yeah.
It's and that's what makes the game, as much as the lore of Mass Effect is, it's very interesting and stuff, but the real reason I play it is for the characters. Yeah. That's the reason I go back to it. I think that's the reason most people go back to it, is because you want to see those characters again, or you want to play Shepard slightly differently and see how the characters react. Yeah. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, just as I was saying for Citadel, if at the end of the day, the entire series, like, for most players, it's all about the characters, the party, and as well as that, and how well written they are, and how well the act they are. So I think despite what happened with Mass Effect 3's ending, its legacy will always be those characters and how greatly fleshed out they were.
I thought it was brilliant. I thought obviously the character interactions is amazing. Again, that was I was in terms of. I mean, I could talk. I'll try not to talk too long about the ending, but I felt the kind of it almost felt. I feel kind of Mass Effect 2 is the pinnacle of the writing of the Mass Effect series. I feel that's where it's just at its absolute best. And then also almost Mass Effect 3, there was obviously the ending was the most noticeable issue, but there was other like little things. I mean, obviously because a big, Thane fan that I am, the way he dies is a little bit ridiculous. He runs into a man with a sword when he has a gun, which just, I remember watching that and I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously, this is how he's gonna die? And then, although he does have a really touching kind of death scene, and just little bits like that, it just kind of felt like, no, BioWare, you were doing so well up until now.
Even more so when you consider how heroic Morden's death was.
Yeah, exactly. Morden's death was brilliant. And then I remember one of the things that really, I had to, when I was playing the game, after this happened, I had to like stop the game and just like go away for a little bit, because it was after Thane's death, and it's really sad, and my character romanced Thane, so it was like, heartbreaking times. And then, so like, you go back into the Normandy, and I think it's Garrus is looking at, there's that kind of, monument with all the people that have died, their names appear on the monument.
Yeah.
And so like, Garrus was standing there and I was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to get a little cutscene about, oh, Shepard, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I went over and he just kind of looked at me and goes, at times like this, I really miss Ashley. And I was like, seriously? Seriously? You're doing this now? I was like, she died 2 games ago, Garrus. Let it go. And and Shepard's boyfriend had just died and stuff, and then I got to that point and I was just like, no, okay, no. I need a moment here.
To BioWare's credit, they really can make us care about their characters, like I said.
Exactly. The fact that I could even have that reaction about a character is, but that still pisses me off. I think that, times like this I miss Ashley. I was like, fuck Ashley! She died 2 games ago! I chose her to die!
What else? I mean, of course, there's the massive shock death, which was huge. That was massive. It was, taking a main character who, you'd leveled up, you'd grown really attached to. I used to use her in my party because she was, specialised in healing, so she was really useful. And then they just freaking killed her off. It was, the most intense shock tactic. So yeah, I mean, it's got all these different qualities which make it just the most exciting and immersive story.
Let's come back to Aerith's death, because that's like you said, 17 years since the game came out. In fact, it's 20 years this year the game started development.
Wow.
And that scene is very infamous by now because of how iconic it is.
Yeah.
Because of how much it's basically become a meme, like, spoiler, Ares died.
Yeah.
Talk about your reaction when you played through that, or not when you played through, but when you saw that scene, you saw Sephiroth coming down, just go into Ares.
I think I was just so upset. I think I probably cried. I'm probably not the only person though. I think that scene made lots of people cry. It was just so beautifully done. You know, before that, Eris had gone missing from your party, so you know you're trying to track her down for ages. So you haven't had her in your party for a while. But by that point, you know, you develop quite a relationship with her. I think that's, I'm trying to think now how far that is into the game. Near the end of disc 1, possibly. I might be wrong on that, but either way, you've had many hours to get attached to this character. And I always wanted Eris to get with Cloud when it was kind of like, do I want Cloud to get with Tifa or Eris? I always wanted him to get with Eris, just because I liked her more. So it was extra upsetting for me. And then, yeah, the cutscene, obviously the cutscenes back then, they didn't look particularly stunning. They weren't that amazing. The cutscenes didn't get really cool in Final Fantasy until number 8. But 7, you know, it's only got a handful of them. But that scene where he just, you know, he floats down and just stabs her through the stomach. I mean, it's brutal. And she just slumps over. It's, you know, they don't pull any punches. It's just really horrible. And then, of course, it's the way, so the materia, it falls out of her hair, and with every bounce is like a note from her song, so like do 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 do, like it's haunting the way they did it. It's beautiful. And then just seeing Cloud like let her just drop into the like wherever they are, the water, and just fade, disappear forever. You know, it's really upsetting. They did such an amazing job of just breaking everyone's heart.
That's probably an apt way to describe it.
Yeah.
On the flip side, like you talked about him in part just then, but like like what about Sephiroth? Because like he is the bad guy to end all bad guys, not just in Final Fantasy, but like ever in games anyways.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't think of a game where, well, I mean, there's a few, Ganondorf is pretty iconic in that sense, from Zelda, but I just don't think any kind of bad guys lived up to Sephiroth's completely insane, crazy, evil persona that he has. Like his style, you know, the long black coat, the long thin sword, and his grey hair. When I first played Monster, I thought he was meant to be really old because he had this grey hair, not realizing that it was just a kind of like JRPG style where, you know, younger characters can have crazy coloured hair. So I think he's only meant to be like 22 or something. But yeah, so, you know, his style is very simple, but, you know, so he, you know, like you instantly recognise him. But the fact that he's just such a nutter with his mum, Genova, and like the Promised Land and all this crazy stuff, he just, yeah, like he stands out. His, especially again, like I said before, his music is so haunting with the, you know, the choir and everything. And like whenever I think about Sephiroth, I just think about that scene in 7 where that music's playing and he appears in the fire and he sort of just walks away, and he's just the ultimate badass. Like he is the ultimate bad guy for me.
And of course, in relation to Sephiroth, there's of course One Winged Angel.
Yes, exactly. You know, that's just the best theme. It's yeah, I love Sephiroth. I do.
Shenmue 2, it's probably more well known, and Shenmue 2 is quite a personal game to me because I played it around the time of my parents' separation, and so I had a lot of feelings going on when I finished that game. But also because it really was the last great Sega game before they stopped manufacturing consoles. And to me, Shenmue kind of represents the death of childhood.
Wow.
That probably sounds a bit melodramatic.
No.
Like I was 16 and it kind of felt like everything I knew was falling apart at the time. And then you had this incredible game with the biggest cliffhanger ever. But Shenmue 2 is full of great bits. is the fantastic bit when you have to fight your way up like 50 floors of a building. It's just constant fights, just constantly kicking people's asses, and you finally get to fight Landy at the top of a skyscraper. It's mind-blowing, and the amount of detail they've put into the world, and it's got really, really great characters, and like, it's just stuff full of like arcade machines and things. It's like, what were they thinking? That would never get approved today. No. Nobody, like, you play as a Japanese teenager in 1986, and you get to walk around town and like, get a job driving a forklift, and, airing out books, and you get to learn martial arts moves. People are like, piss off, nobody's gonna buy this. This is how many million? 70 million? It's still like the most expensive game ever made. Sure.
Do you think, like, if Suzuki went and did a Kickstarter right now for it, like, it'll easily be funded, no problem. The question is, how much will be the target?
I would give a kidney to get Shenmue 3, right? What are they worth? 7,000? I would do anything to play that game. Really. But I think that he would also really like to release it, but it's just like... would it really live up to all of our expectations? Is that possible? It's a bit like Half-Life 3, isn't it?
It's a bit yeah, sorry. No, I was just gonna say it's a bit like Zone of the Enders 3 for me.
Yeah, it's like I think Zone of the Enders 3 could possibly work.
Or even Last Guardian.
Oh god. Well, Last Guardian, you're relying on a couple of trailers. I think with Shenmue 2, you're relying on like two of the best video games ever made. Like the game that invented, or at least popularized, the QuickTime event.
Like I said, I started playing it today, and I feel like an idiot. I must have been far more intelligent back then, when I was like 19, 18. Because I'm wandering around at the start of the game, going, right, I have to get this work order done. How the fuck do I get this guy to sign a work order? And I'm wandering around. There's like 5 locations. No idea what I'm supposed to do. I've talked to everyone I can. I've tried poking everything. And I think maybe I'm supposed to get through this locked door, but I have no idea how to get through the locked door. There don't seem to be any hints. Maybe now I need to go back down to the toolbox that I saw before that I couldn't use. But I haven't checked that yet. And yeah, it is. Like, on the one hand, if I solve this puzzle, I will know better, but right now I feel very, very lost. That may be because it's encouraging you to explore the entire area, and I have, just by being left to my own devices, I have discovered a few rooms where a modern game would probably just be like, perhaps you should go down here and turn left and open the door, which I also hate. Like, Batman is very guilty of that. You know, the Arkham Asylum series.
Yeah, I remember.
Like, you look around for about 2 seconds, and the voice starts going, maybe I should go up here. And you're like, shut up, I'm looking around.
I remember Arkham City being very guilty of this. As much as I loved Arkham City, like, I remember that just being very guilty of doing that.
Yeah. Like, just let people turn it off, you know, chill out. Maybe we're looking at the scenery.
I mean,
yeah, like I've only been wandering around for about 10 minutes. It's hardly the epitome of frustration yet.
Oh, yeah. But like...
I'm impatient, we have the internet now.
Yes.
I could be watching crap on YouTube.
Yes, help you out. To be fair, like, this is kind of the thing about the internet now, because, like, obviously you have Let's Plays and all that there, and walkthroughs, and that especially comes in handy when you're playing games like Grim Fandango, if you've not played it for a long time, or just stupidly, notoriously hard bastard games like Dark Souls.
Oh, yes. Well, I get the feeling Dark Souls was designed for that kind of collaboration, was it not?
Yeah, I get the feeling it was, yeah.
Yeah. Or did that just kind of grow up Like, did that community just grow up from it being bastard hard?
I think at the same time, that was definitely the case as well. It was kind of a mix of both, really. Because, like, there was still that crowd within Demon's Souls as well.
Yeah.
That was kind of, like, obviously Demons and Dark Souls, they're both very different games, but, like, there was still that kind of community that was there from the Demon's Souls days that could kind of give you an idea of...
Yeah, they understand the philosophy behind the design. Whereas me playing Dark Souls, I'm running down a corridor face first into 3 enemies and getting splattered every time for an hour.
Yeah.
Because I'm impatient and I mash buttons.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing you can do in a Dark Souls game.
Yeah, I'm the same. And I just think, well, I'm just going to go down here. Oh no! Big ass enemy! They kill me!
Yeah.
You died! And every time I see you died now on the screen, I just think, you died, motherfucker.
At the same time, I do appreciate what that game, or the popularity of that game, is bringing to video games as a whole now. Which is that hopefully it's teaching developers that you don't have to make your game ridiculously hand-holdy easy. And I do miss that, because from... Like, I used to play a lot of Tomb Raider, or Tomb Raider 3 and Tomb Raider 4. And you just, you know, you're Lara, and you get dropped in a tomb, or particularly the beginning of Tomb Raider 3 was amazing. Because you just get dropped on a hill, and you're sliding down a hill. And you go to the cutscene, and you go, then, oh fuck, I'm in control. And then about 2 seconds, or 5 seconds later, you hit a tree and die.
Oops.
And then you realize, oh crap, I'm supposed to jump. I need to actually do things in order to survive. Yeah. And then you could jump over the trees, or you could time it right and you could jump onto a branch and that would stop your fall, and then you could have a look around. And it was cool. And then you get to Tomb Raider Legends, which was maybe 2007, I think it was. And it's basically walk down a corridor, wait for the big Y to flash up, and then press Y and you will grapple. Like, that's not problem solving, that's not discovery. And there's that to some extent with the new Tomb Raider. But they do still have the exploration aspect if you want to go and collect all the little bits and pieces. And it's a little bit annoying that that's kind of reserved for achievement hunters or people who like to collect stuff, because I don't particularly like to collect stuff.
Yeah, I'm the same.
I like to explore, and I like in the original Warren, Tomb Raider 2 and 3 and so on, you'd find a new path and you'd go do, and then you'd find like a rocket launcher. And you wouldn't have that many uses for it, but you'd still have a rocket launcher much earlier in the game than you would otherwise. And it was cool. It would then improve your experience with the rest of the game. Whereas the new Tomb Raider, yeah, okay, I get some little story bits. Or now I found a shiny mask to turn around. Woo!
We talked about the aspects that you liked about the game. Like, what about the aspects that you hated about the game?
About Wind Waker?
Yeah.
Well, there's kind of, again, I kind of touched upon this in my blog, and it's, I kind of feel Wind Waker has, for me, the kind of my favorite kind of reincarnation, if you will, of Zelda or Ganondorf. I think the kind of Ganondorf with the dual swords and the kind of Japanese type robe is really cool, and just that, I think that's like the best. For me, that's my favorite one. And again, like I love Tetra as a character, and there's going to be spoilers here.
Yeah, you're fine.
But obviously Tetra turns out to be Princess Zelda, and but yeah, I love Tetra as a character. I mean, when I was a girl, it was so liberating to kind of have this kind of young female character that was kind of, didn't take any shit and was head of a group of pirates and stuff like that. And I just loved that. And, but my least favourite bit of the game is when it is revealed that Tetra is Princess Zelda. She kind of goes this transformation, and all of a sudden she's, wearing the classic pink dress, and her hair's all fancy, and she has a bit of makeup on. And I kind of thought, at the time, I was the girliest of girls when I was growing up. Like, if there was anything pink or sparkly or anything like that, then I just fucking loved it. So when Tetra kind of turned, and all of a sudden she had this pink dress, I was like, oh my god, she's just gotten even cooler. It's like, for me, that was like awesome. Sorry. For me I just thought that was awesome. But then, kind of all of a sudden, she loses all her personality as soon as she turned into Princess Zelda. I mean, she turns into Princess Zelda, and then the King of Hyrule, or the King of Red Lions, goes, oh well, for me, it is my wish that you stay here. It is too dangerous for you to go out now. Something along those lines. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, what? I was like, she's a badass pirate. She's just been doing all this shit. How come all of a sudden, just because she's wearing a pink dress, she, can't go out and do what she was doing? And I kind of expected, maybe she'll kind of be like, no way, old man, kind of thing. But she doesn't. She just kind of goes, oh well, I'll see you later, Link, whatever. And I was just a bit like, what? Like, that doesn't work. Like, even just her character would at least kind of fight it a little bit, at least kind of question it a bit. And I just found that really disheartening. And, I mean, later on when you're doing the boss fight, she gets kidnapped, of course, because she's Princess Zelda, and that is her role. She gets kidnapped, and you have to go rescue her and stuff. And in the final boss fight, she does kind of help out, and she fires arrows and stuff like that. And I just kind of felt, and she does kind of get her personality back a bit. But yeah, she turns back into Tetra by the end of the game. I don't know, I just kind of felt by that point the damage had been done a bit, and it was just kind of a bit, it was almost like they came so close to kind of doing something a bit different, and I was just absolutely loving this character, and then they had to turn around and do the typical kind of, oh well, now that you're wearing a pink dress and you're Princess Zelda, you should probably stay here, it's a bit dangerous. And I just, even now, even when I played it recently, I was playing the HD one, on the gamepad, and I just kind of got to that bit, and I was just like, oh man, I hate this bit so much.
Such bullshit.
Yeah, and I just think back to kind of, like little me, kind of just getting, sitting there in my pink dress with, pink clips and, fluffy stuff and sparkles, and just sitting there. I was thinking, why, just because she's wearing this pink dress and she's a princess, does she have to be, have some kind of personality lobotomy all of a sudden? Just, and it just, and that is one, that I think that's the main thing about the game that gets me to this day. But even still, I think it's one of the better reincarnations of Princess Zelda in the series. At least for half the game or 3/4 of the game, at least she's still a badass pirate.
Yeah, to a degree, like there's that kind of character that who finds herself, having this kind of. I'm kind of struggling to use this word, if it's the right term, but to find her own independence. Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, because when you start the game, Tetra's, she's completely independent, and she kind of helps you a bit, and she's kind of cheeky and sassy and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, like, I just absolutely lapped that up as a little girl. I thought that was brilliant. And then to kind of have that kind of taken away, just when you think, it's in a game, especially when I was younger, you didn't really get that character very often. And if you did get that character, it would often be in kind of forms of like Samus and stuff, where their gender wasn't part of their character, if you know what I mean. They could be male or female. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think, kind of a strong female character that gender isn't a major part is a thing that needs to happen, is a good thing. But there was definitely a lack of kind of
all the strong female characters, they were like Samus, or they were like Jade from Beyond Good and Evil, and they're all brilliant characters. But they weren't, this is again, it's going to sound awful, but when I was little, they weren't girly. And I didn't mean they should be. You need diversity and stuff, but when I was younger, all the characters that were kind of girly or kind of, like the same things as me, they were all kind of, and they were either like Ashley from Resident Evil 4, they were annoying, or they were useless, or they were bratty, they were like
or Rose from Metal Gear Solid 2.
Exactly, they were all they were either kind of useless or annoying, and it was kind of, and to the point where I think now looking back, I went from being incredibly girly to being a massive tomboy, and it was a conscious decision, because every kind of girly character I saw in games or even on TV, they were the annoying ones, and I was like, well, I don't want to be that. And looking back, that's really unfair. I shouldn't have had to have, changed my identity because, video games and because cartoons are telling me that, pink and bows and sparkles were annoying.
Yeah, and I was going to say as well, like that kind of Samus reveal at the end of Metroid, like it kind of had that "it's me, Austin" type reveal. Like, yeah. Like, by the way, if that reference goes over anyone's head, go check out the Authority reveal on YouTube. You'll get it. But no, that kind of reveal, like of Samus at the end of Metroid, the first Metroid, like it was like, holy crap. I was playing as a female character all along, rather than a male character. Cause, like, if you think about it, like at least from the surface, when you're first starting playing out Metroid, although admittedly this is coming from someone who's never played Metroid, so I'm just basically saying this as a kind of a rambling thought. Like like when you're first playing Metroid, like you think Samus Aran, that's kind of a boy's name, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a brilliant thing, and I'm not saying kind of, every female character should be really girly. That's of course not, not what I'm saying, and and it's and there was obviously, the kind of, it's brilliant that female character designers got past the kind of stage of, she is female, therefore she shall wear pink and she shall have a flower in her hair, and that is how she is female. It's brilliant that we've got past that, but in a kind of way, it's almost that a character that is kind of into those kind of things, it automatically becomes a kind of negative quality, if you know what I mean. I remember that's sorry, need to clear my throat. But one of my runner-up games is Dragon Age Origins. I absolutely adored that game, and one of the reasons why I love it so much is the characters in it. I think it's got some of the best characters in any game. And one of the characters is Liliana, who is a kind of female assassin-y type person who's now a nun, essentially. And she, and I just thought she was so well written, because she was she'd talk about how she liked fashion and shoes, and she was, missed all that stuff. But it wasn't a detriment to her, it was just part of who she was, and it wasn't the defining part of her character, but it also wasn't a negative quality. It didn't stop her still, going out and shooting bad guys in the face with arrows. And I remember playing that game and seeing that character and kind of thinking, God, this is a really underused character. This is incredibly rare in a way.
And like when you think of really great female characters in games recently as well, like there's, like for me anyways, there's the boss from Metal Gear Solid 3, Alex from Half-Life 2, Elizabeth from BioShock Infinite, in fact, to an extent, and Ellie from The Last of Us. Yeah,
I just recently played The Last of Us. I'm so behind. Obviously I got my PS4, so I played finally caught up with all the hype, and yeah, I loved that character so much. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was really brave, kind of really playing on the fact that, it's the idea that she hasn't had a childhood, and so she kind of isn't a child in a way. She's almost like a kind of, with the way she swears and stuff like that. And I just thought that was, I really liked that. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah. Have you played Left Behind?
I haven't played Left Behind yet. I've still got to play that.
Best not say anything yet. Although then she becomes really more awesome than she does in the main game, and that takes, and that's saying something, considering how much her character is just so bloody amazing, how fleshed out it is. I really love it. But at the same time, going back to one of the other characters I mentioned is the boss from Metal Gear Solid 3. I mean, have you had a chance to play MGS3 at all?
No, the only Metal Gear Solid I've played is Ground Zeroes. Yeah, but I am aware, when I wrote, I reviewed and did a feature on Ground Zeroes for Jinx, and just to understand what was going on, I probably did more research into the backstory of Metal Gear Solid than I have for any kind of history dissertation, or that took some hardcore research. That was staying up in the library till 3 a.m. kind of stuff. So I do know who you're talking about when you mentioned Big Boss.
Yeah, even now for Metal Gear Die Hard, just to be clear, there's still strands of stuff that even we still don't understand.
Yeah. I gave up after a while.
But I digress. I mean, I know Kojima's kind of writing for female characters recently has kind of been, that, for the lack of a better term, very, and in a polite way as well, kind of scatterbrain. Because, Quiet is very debatable. And what happened with, spoilers, Paz at the end of Ground Zeroes was really, I want to say really shit, but it's more than that. And that was one of the things. Sorry to interrupt, but I had it's something I really struggle with, and it's something I can appreciate. I think Kojima's amazing in terms of kind of mechanics design and stuff like that. And when I play Ground Zeroes, it's mechanically it's brilliant and it looks gorgeous and stuff like that, and I can really appreciate that. But it's just I think it's not excusable in any way, the way he's treated female characters recently. And I think the problem is he's tried to kind of go down this kind of really gritty realism kind of route, especially with, the kind of the Fox engine creating all these amazing graphics and stuff. But, you can't do that and still have the occasional really cartoon violence, especially when it's only aimed at the female characters. It doesn't work. I remember I've kind of heard bits about the end of Ground Zeroes, but it wasn't until I played it and I was like, this is really horrible. This is just horrible. This isn't doing anything. It's not saying anything. It's just there for the sake of,
for being shocked. Yeah, it's he's trying to tackle kind of grown-up issues about as much subtlety as a kind of, as a train wreck. It really doesn't, it kind of feels almost kind of like we're being grown up now, so this is going to happen. And it doesn't work like that. Again, with the whole Quiet thing and, and the kind of the rest of, and you see the Phantom Pain trailer, everyone else, it's really realistic. It's Afghanistan or stuff, and they've got, everyone's wearing proper armor and stuff. And then the sole female character comes out and she's wearing a bikini top. And it's that doesn't work. I kind of feel like if you're taking that realism approach, you can't then have a kind of, you can't pick and choose when the kind of cartoony kind of what's the Kill Bill style comic book violence or comic book kind of characterization of characters comes in. I feel if you're going to do that, you have to do that. You can't pick and choose. It can't just be, okay, well, all these male characters, they're going to be gritty and realistic. This female character, she's going to wander around with massive tits and a bikini top because, well, that's what. And I think, didn't he say that he wanted to encourage cosplayers and people to buy models with his choice in character design for Quiet? Yeah. And it's just, oh god. I kind of feel like if EA had come out and said that, there would be an uproar you wouldn't believe. And I kind of feel like Kojima gets away with a lot because he's Kojima and because he's, he has done all these brilliant things and he is a genius, but he's also someone that, still needs to be held accountable.
Definitely. I mean, it's such a shame too, because, at the same time, I actually think, even despite what's happened recently with characters like Paz, like Quiet, I still consider the boss to be probably my favorite character in a game ever. I think, the way her story is fleshed out, is great and at the same time tragic. And the performance given by Laurie Allen was great. She really suited that role, and I kind of said this to someone recently as well, doing this. Like, for all the shit Kojima rightly deserves for, you know, female characters as of late, I think The Boss is one example where he actually gets it right.
And I think in a way that almost makes it kind of less excusable, because it's in there. You know, you've done it before. You've treated female characters with, you know, as fully fleshed out characters. Why, do you know what I mean? It's kind of, if you've done that before, then why is it acceptable to do what you're doing now, in a way? It's kind of, it's almost like, you know better than this, in a way.
Yeah.
But I guess also, I'm not a huge stealth fan. I'm not a stealthy person in any game. I prefer to run in and just, you know, hack and slash and stuff. So Metal Gear isn't my natural port of call for a favourite game or anything, but I can still really appreciate it. And yeah, I just remember lots of people kind of, when I was talking about lots of people about Ground Zero, it's people going, oh, well, it's only one part of the game. You know, it's only like a couple of minutes of cutscene. Like, can't you just ignore that? And no, I can't ignore that. That's an active decision to put that in there. And if you've actually watched the scene on YouTube where you played the game, it's horrible. It's a horrible thing, and it doesn't fit tonally with the game at all, and it doesn't feel like a kind of a conscious tone switch in a game. It just doesn't work, I think. And a lot of people, I'm very much one of these people that I will play a game and I'll play it a lot for the story and the characters and stuff like that. So I will often excuse kind of slightly dodgy mechanics for the story or for the world. And a lot of people won't do that. And so for me, that's the kind of equivalent of a niggling mechanic in a game, that kind of treatment of that character. Even though it may not be present for the whole game, it's still going to be there. And it still bothers me, if you know what I mean.
Silent Hill 3 was kind of the only foray, not only into the PS2 saga, but also the entire series.
Was that the only one you played?
That's the only one I've played.
Oh, the thing is, like, obviously I played the first one, but then I didn't play the second one until after I'd played 4, I think. I had to go back, basically. So, yeah, it was quite an interesting way that I went.
Yeah, I mean, like, the one thing, like...
You should definitely play 2. Like,
people keep telling me to play 2, but like the only copy I have of 2 is off the HD collection on PS3, and that's not meant to be very well received.
I didn't find that many problems with the PS3 version. Like, when I played it for... Who did I play it for? PSM3, when PSM3 was a thing. And I didn't actually have any problems. I don't know if I was really lucky or what happened, but I actually didn't have problems when I played it.
To be fair...
Might be the only one.
To be fair, Konami's HD collections have been kind of scatterbrained, like they've been somewhere between either shite or at best really darn fucking good, because with the Metal Gear Solid HD collection, that was made by Bluepoint.
Oh, okay.
And they did the Team Ico and God of War collections, and they were bloody good.
Mm-hmm.
Zone of the Enders was middling, because like the Xbox 360 and PS3 versions kind of had like frame rate issues, but otherwise were okay. In fact, for the PS3 version, they actually released a patch for Enders 2, and that is easily better than the PS2 original.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
But for Silent Hill, apparently it's just no, it's shit.
No.
Apparently.
Yeah, but you should definitely, like, if you can, like, grab a PS2 and play Silent Hill 2. And then Silent Hill 3, because I loved Silent Hill 3, which loads of people kind of mock, but I really like it. There's a whole theme park thing, and there's this haunted mansion that you have to go through, and there's like a red light that chases you, and it's really good. I really enjoyed it.
Plus, not to mention Akira Yamaoka's amazing theme.
The score, the fact that his score is under the Silent Hills trailer, just that little ripple. That lovely little ripple, and it's just like, oh my god, amazing. This is it. This score is here. Like, it's just, it's amazing. Theme of Laura, amazing. That's in Silent Hill 2. It's so good. So good. Can we talk PT? Because, oh my god, PT. Have you played PT?
No, and I don't intend to.
Oh, what? PT's incredible.
That's exactly why I don't want to play it, because then it just means it's going to be more scary, Mommy.
It's really scary. It's really scary. Like, I was an idiot, actually. I was a total idiot. I was like, I want to play PT. What will I do? Oh, here's the best way of playing PT. I'll stream it. That's a great idea. And everyone was like, Louise, maybe before you stream it, maybe you should read a bit about it. I was like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And then, it got to halfway through the bake-off. So I'd been planning on doing it after the bake-off. And I was like, PT, I'll be doing that in half an hour. Twitter's talking about this, saying it's pretty scary. Oh, man, okay. So then, another 20 minutes passed, and I was like, the bake-off's almost done. I need to play PT now. And I started it up, and I was like, I can't do this. I was at the start of the corridor, and I just opened the door, and I was like, I cannot do this. This is terror. But then people started watching. And I was like, I can't just stop. So I did it. I played it for 2 hours. It was awful. And there were moments in PT that I was just like, genuinely, I was in my flat by myself in the dark at night, having people on the internet watch me play a horror game, and it all just felt horrid, but it was amazing, but horrid. Like there are some scenes in that which I've now played it twice. I went back for more.
You sadist.
Yeah, well, I had to take grabs the next time, so that's what it's like. Louise, I want you to write this 1,000 words on this, but I need grabs, and it's like, that means I need to go back. Great. And there were things that I experienced in the second time that I did not experience in the first, and vice versa. And there are moments of such true horror that I don't think I'll ever really forget. And it's also the fact, I was speaking to Dave Houghton about this the other day, that we're kind of, and he's done a great article on it on Games Radar actually, of the kind of mythical sort of status that PT's already taking on, and the fact that everybody has different experiences of it. So I had things that happened to me, he had things that happened to him. Sometimes, like, people online have seen things that no one else has seen. And it's just got this multi-layered level of terror to it. Things coming out of mirrors, and that horrible baby in the sink, and there's been all these great conspiracy theories about what everything means, and, trying to create the background to Norman Reedus' character. And it's just got this horrible depth to it, but also this primal level of fear that it's such a simple setup. It's one corridor looped as many times as you can do it. So it's just, and all you have is the power to look harder, effectively, with R3. That's all you have. You have nothing else. You don't have the capacity to fight back. Oh, Outlast. Outlast is in one of my... Outlast must be, if not in my top 10, at least my top 20. Outlast is exceptional. Outlast is one of my favourite games ever for being mortally afraid for 6 hours.
I have Outlast on my PS4, but like I said, it's only there because I got afraid. No, I'm not touching it.
It's really scary. Like, Outlast is terror, sheer terror.
If I put you on the spot, which is scarier, Outlast or PT?
Oh, the thing is, they're totally different. Like, they are very different in that Outlast has this whole horror movie vibe to it. Like, the fact that you've got the night vision camera, So you're sort of handed this thing and you're put on this ghost train. Outlast is this very, very potent, horrendous, horrible, depraved, disturbing ghost train, effectively, because it steers you very specifically. It's very linear. It might not feel it, but it really, really is, and everything has a specific shock to it. You know exactly what's not going to happen to you. You're squeezing through gaps, and you might get grabbed, or you're going past people that are, the horror movie sort of deformity in sort of a wheelchair. You're going past, and things are going to happen. But PT puts you in an environment and says, "Oh, something might happen here. Oh, this corridor's dark. Why don't you walk down it?" And it has this sort of slow-paced, simplistic terror that of sort of almost Victorian literature type of pacing, really. So PT is disturbing in its pacing, really, and is horrid and nasty, and I love it. I absolutely love it.